Good evening, everyone. That was pretty good. I didn't actually have to do it a second time. That's what usually ends up having to happen. It means I usually get like, but I can tell that you folks have the good energy. It's that time of year, right? Where everybody is just busting with all of that energy. Oh gosh, we all know that that's a farce. We all know that. But you know what? The holiday season is coming. We are excited. I am fired up. I am pleased to be here with you all for this show. Again, my name is Greg Frankson. I am the artistic director for BlackLit Durham, and we are doing show number 2 in our 3rd season here tonight. And I'm very excited to have you all here with us in the beautiful St. Francis Center. This is where you applaud. Amazing. So we are very, very privileged this evening to have 2 incredible features who are going to be coming up in a little bit. They're going to bless the mic and share some of their amazing literary creativity. Both of them are experienced writers, stage presences, published. This is exactly the kind of crowd that they love, a crowd that likes the word. So I'm gonna wave at my boy up there. I'm like, what's going on? I'm hearing a little crackling. Are we good? Oh yeah, he's gonna make an adjustment. I have to tell you, the sound crew, the tech people who are supporting us in this show, they're wonderful, amazing human beings, and this show just doesn't get pulled off, without the support of the people here, whether they're in the booth or they're at the bar, the folks in the St. Francis Center who helped to make this possible. So thank you all very much for your efforts. I'm just going to start by saying that this territory that we're on is the original land of many nations, including the Haudenosaunee, the Chippewa, the Wendat peoples, and of course the Mississauga of the Credit. We are privileged, Mississauga of Scugog Island, my apologies. We are really fortunate to have the opportunity to gather here. This is not something that we need to take for granted because, the society that we've built on this territory, we always have to keep in mind that we need to honor and respect those people who were here first, make sure that we are treating them with the proper level of respect, seeking the truth around some of the negative aspects of Canadian society and the way that Indigenous people have been abused and oppressed over time, and work towards a healing and a rapprochement around that in a genuine spirit of reconciliation. And so just want to acknowledge that for us all here today. The other thing that I'd like to do is there's 2 more things that we always do at the beginning of these shows. So the second one is that we have a specific acknowledgement that comes from the perspective of the African community here. And so this Afrocentric land acknowledgement, it was developed by Kay Johnson, who is out of the University of Windsor. And it goes like this. As people of African descent, we offer this land recognition in solidarity with the Indigenous peoples of Turtle Island in the efforts and deliberate intentions towards the colonization. We acknowledge the land of Turtle Island that was never meant to be owned. We recognize that most of the land that was entrusted to the Indigenous peoples was in some cases shared by choice, but all too often taken by force. We recognize the historical colonialism and the ongoing colonialism that has led to the present-day situation where land acknowledgements are offered in place of land. As people of African descent, many of us have come here by choice, while many of us are here as the result of historical force. We acknowledge the complexities where we were promised land that was never given by those whose it was never to give. As people of African descent, we acknowledge the land of Turtle Island that sustains us, express deep gratitude to its Indigenous peoples, and pledge to honor our dignity and divinity that ultimately connects us all. And having done that, there's one last thing that we always do. We are Black people in North America, living in a place where we were never supposed to be. But we have always managed to find strength and solidarity in coming together and acting as community, acting as one. And one of the ways that we do that is by celebration through voice, through raising our voices. And so I ask you to stand for the playing of the Black National Anthem, lift every voice and sing.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the distant skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us, facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
Awesome. Thank you, folks. Have a seat. So now we're in the right place to begin at this time. And I guess we're going to switch this one, right? Yeah. Bye. This microphone is being a bad microphone, so I'll put that here. Much better. Much better. Okay, cool. So, folks, as we always do, we're going to start with the open mic. We want to hear the voices of local community writers in whatever literary form they wish to share in. Give them 5 minutes each to come up and give their piece to the audience, and so that we can wrap them in the love and continue to support the creative arts here in Durham region, coming from folks in our community. And so first up to the microphone tonight is Cheryl Bromfield. And when we applaud them all the way to the stage, right? That's right. Scribe knows about that. All right.
Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Cheryl Bromfield. I'm an educator with the Durham District School Board, an author, and I'm a women's wellness leader of a movement that I've called Amazaya, which means extraordinary in Swahili. So, what's the meaning of essence? It's the most significant element, quality, or aspect of a thing or person. I want you to visualize with me and take this mental journey. Essence. Where are you? Where did you go? I remember. I let you take it, and now I find myself on slow-mo, trying to resuscitate myself from your hold, trying to resuscitate myself from your tongue, trying to find the melody to the old me I once sung. I won't let my essence be trampled on, paraded, or to desecrate what is mine. I've awakened. It's true. I ain't lying. Essence, my she, is the final layer to the peacock you are. You're not just one color limited by the choice of one. Much like you used to say, your words hit, but I let them fall. To the ground, I happily walk on them. Crumple on them some more. No, I'm not just one color, but many. Infusions of my creator. Essence, I've tapped in. Essence, I'm locked. You are my key. I am free to simply be me. I can watch you from afar and stand in awe. I know you look at me with fascination, elation, patience. You're all I need. For there's only one I want to please. Let's stay together. Never, never separate. We must stick together, okay? Essence, did you hear me? Of course, you're the one that listens. It's me that lets you go. No more to anyone who does not want me to grow. Hinders my flow. Who aims to rise, desires I stay low. Essence, I love you. Who aims to rise, desires I stay low. Who can't embrace my fro? You cascade deep into my being, make me shake, dance, jump, leap, and weep. I just love how you embrace me. You make me sing, laugh, rejoice with that little girl within who just wants to love, live, be free from this world of sin. Essence, you're the real. You're the one that shines. You're a powerhouse. You make me rise. You are my lifeline to the T. I treasure you. Right here in my soul's chest. I will hang on to you. I can rest. No matter life's test, because of you, this fearless she is forever blessed. Thank you for listening. I'm actually going to be doing a healing workshop on Sunday, and it also involves trauma-informed Pilates. So if you want to know more, let me know. Thank you.
You could do better than that. All right. Nice work, Cheryl. All right. Amazing, amazing, amazing. And we're very excited to keep it rolling for Dwight Jenkins. Applaud him all the way to the stage. He's coming up. He's got something special for y'all. Don't worry, he ain't here yet. Keep clapping. He ain't here yet. Thank you very much. All right.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk a little bit. I know that we're all familiar with the Christmas holidays, but there's also another holiday that is very important to Black people called Kwanzaa. I just want to talk a little bit about the history of Kwanzaa and why I think it's important. I grew up in the 60s, and it was a time when, of course, as we know, Black people in America were looking to fight against discrimination. But there were also things that were happening in Africa at the same time. It was a time when Africans were becoming independent. And what happened essentially was Kwanzaa was a situation in which they tried to blend what was happening in both United States with what was happening in Africa. We had in Africa 17 countries in the 60s that were becoming independent. We also had, as some of you may or may not know, the Sharpeville Massacre, in which many Blacks were killed mercilessly. And in the United States, at the same time, there was the Watts situation in California, where many died. And we had a moment where There was the authors like Nikki Giovanni, who died 2 days ago. We had Lorraine Hansberry, who was 35 years old and was actually the first American female author to have a play performed on Broadway, A Raising the Sun. And she died at 35 of pancreatic cancer. And men were also an integral part of the Black arts movement in the 60s. People like James Baldwin, Langston Hughes, and Leroy Jones, who changed his name from Leroy James to Amira Baraka. Hoy Fowler, editor of the Negro Digest in 1968, wrote the following: across this country, young black men and women have been infected with a fever of affirmation. They are saying, we are black and beautiful. Black families were more closely knit in the 60s. And in 1981, the New York Times pointed out in an article that more black businesses flourished in the 60s than they did in the 80s. There was a person by the name of Molano Ron Karinga, Dr. actually, Molano Ron Karinga, who after meeting Malcolm X began to embrace black nationalism. And he formulated a set of principles called Kawada, which is a Swahili term for tradition and reason. And after the riots in Watts in 1965, he went on to formulate the African American holiday of Kwanzaa, first celebrated in California on December 26, 1966. The holiday runs for 7 days, and this is very important, from December 26th to January 1st, inclusively. And what he wanted to do was wed what was happening in Africa with what was happening in the United States. It was a holiday that was there to celebrate family, culture, African heritage, and Black American culture. What happens with Kwanzaa is there's a cultural connection. Each day Kwanzaa represents the 7 principles of Pan-African culture. An elder will greet the family, and he asks what's new in Swahili. The term in Swahili is called habara gari, and the family will respond with the principle of the day. Umoja, meaning unity. Kajuli, meaning self-determination. Kumba, creativity. Ujima, the collective work and responsibility. Ujama, cooperative economics. Imani, faith. And last but not least, Nia, for purpose. And what they would do is each day they would light a new candle. The black candle would represent all of the people of African descent. The following day on the left, they would have the green candle, they'll have the red candles on the left, and the red candles on the right. The red would represent the blood of our ancestors. And the green, land, life, and our future, our destiny, if you will. These colors were the same as the African flag. And then they would cite the words Harambee 7 times. And Harambee would mean, let's pool together. And then they would have the cup called the Canary Cup, and it would be passed around. And what that meant was all is possible when we work together. There was music, there was storytelling, and there was gifts associated with Kwanzaa.
Thank you very much, Dwight. That's really important for us to have some understanding of where Kwanzaa comes from and the roots. And yeah, I mean, I learned a few new things about Kwanzaa just from listening to you there. And yes, and also noting, you know, the passing of Nikki Giovanni this week. It's a big loss for black literature and for black activism in general as well. So we'll take note of that as well. Thank you. All right. Next up, Feisty Shoshana Harris. If you want, you can applaud her to the stage, if you want. Yeah, no, you probably should. All right, applaud her. Come on up, Ms. Harris.
Hello, I'm Shoshana Harris. I have 2 poems for you, so I'm going to try to get them out of the way. This one's called Unearthing Tranquility. Oh, I long for the days of tranquility, that antiquated feeling of simplicity clothed in serenity where we occupy spaces in time where humanity has no color. Black is not synonymous with hate, where evanescence swallows hyperbolic extensions of our existence, rendering our position inferior, where the color of our skin represents life, not the reason to take it, reflects its true beauty, not stained by ugly, a permanent tattooed reminder of society's flaws, though stars only appear in the dark, where our hair stands tall, each strand synchronized to tell our stories, the woven tales of proud ancestral triumphs, defeats, sacrifices, royalty, where protection and love intersects and entanglement bearing teachings once instilled in humankind. After all, Blackness began existence, yet Black people exist as antithesis, attempts of literary extinction, forgetting that our mere presence defines histories, defies fallacies, denies our denial as we continue to make history, where the degradation of our bodies is not second nature, hypersexualized caricatures for their amusement, yet appropriated, trending, easily attainable for a price, though the weight of being Black is not a price they're willing to pay, where being Black is not a life sentence or a ticket to death row. It's simply being human without having to prove it so. I long for days of tranquility, for in those days I know I will no longer be afraid. That was my first time performing that one, so. This one, too, is my first time. I just wrote this one. I finished it last night. It's called Let Their Spirits Speak. I hear the drums beat, ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. I hear their feet kiss the floor, stomp, stomp, stomp. I hear their hands greet with enthusiasm, clap, clap, clap. I hear their voices chant. I witness bodies ascending into art, become one with each beat, with each stomp, contorts with each chant, possessed by their presence, quilting the spaces between, piecing the pieces together, history made and disseminated on this canvas. Jubilation vibrates through each stitch. One can't help but be transfixed, wanting to be immersed in the strange rhythms, tell stories that only those privy to the rhythmic elements of our existence understands. Release happens here. Freedom happens here. Our ancestors live here. Bodies intoxicated, moving with uncertainty, yet certain of the mission as their hearts beat drums, their bodies become the stories, a lifeline for generations to come. Thank you.
Yeah, keep it going for Shoshana. We can give her a little love, you know. Like, Shoshana to me is like the bratty little sister who's always like poking you in the side, you know, just giving you a hard time. But, you know, it's all love up here in at BlackLit Durham for sure. And our final open micer for the night, folks, is Paul Dryden. Applaud him to the stage. Come on, good sir. Looking fresh tonight as well. Don't worry. Don't stop. He's not there yet. Keep going. Keep going. There we go. That's that energy. All right.
I was trying to rush so you wouldn't have to clap for so long, but but I am really thrilled to be here again tonight. And just very quickly, the poem that I'll be reading tonight is from my book that just came out in November. And the title of the book is Fetters into Wings. And I like to say that what you'll find in this book is what I call the Dryden trilogy. So you'll find a poem, you'll find a picture that speaks to the poem, and you'll find prose as well to explain where the inspiration for that particular poem came from. And so tonight, the book is available on Amazon, and if I have two tonight, if you want, you can have it as well. So the one I'll be reading is called No Apology Necessary. And before I read the poem, I'll just kind of give you where the inspiration for where that poem came from. And I'll read it exactly from here. It says, like a few other entries in this poetic compendium, No Apology Necessary is a statement. It is a statement about living a life that's free of the trappings of the superficial opinions of small-minded peeps and in-the-box constraints of conformity. It speaks of living life unapologetically, with purpose, authenticity, and conviction, even in the presence of opposition and persecution. Jesus puts it this way: blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. Steve Jobs said it this way: don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. And I say it this way: stake your claim, stand really tall, dream big, aim high, and give it your all. Doubters come, and you will watch them go. At the end of the day, you know what you know. And so that was from a line from the poem. So here's the poem. It's called No Apology Necessary. The situations may vary, but when it comes down to it, you realize no apology is necessary. Stake your claim and stand really tall. Dream big, aim high, and give it your all. Doubters come, and you will watch them go. At the end of the day, you know what you know. Keep up the pace. Don't let up. Don't you quit, only rest if you must, to take a break and enjoy the ride. Remember, victory is on the other side. Nothing to prove to anyone but yourself, even if in their minds they have put you on a shelf. It's bigger than you, so you can't stand still. You have a calling and a divine purpose to fulfill. Be unapologetic and make your mark. Truth is your light when the way gets dark. You will come through, a better you. Remember always to thyself be forever true. No apology is necessary when doing what's right. For right, you must be ever ready to fight. When the dust settles and the smoke clears, God and yourself is all you have to fear. Thank you.
Okay, give it up one more time for Paul. And for all of our open micers tonight, to show them a little love and appreciation, thank you very much to Cheryl, Dwight, Shoshana, and Paul. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate you. So we've got a little bit of a warm-up. The appetizers have been served, and now it's time for the main dish. And so we will begin with an incredible artist that I got to meet for the first time at an event that took place, I guess, about a year and a half ago or so. And I was reading from an anthology that I was published in, and Gloria was reading some of her work. She is amazing, and I'm very excited for you all to get to meet her. She does all kinds of wonderful things: music, dance, science, spirit, and culture. All of these things intersect. And she has won the Malahat Review Nonfiction Prize and been nominated for the prestigious Pushcart Prize. So you know you are getting some high-quality stuff when she comes up here. She's had her work published by the CBC, Globe and Mail, Wasafiri International Contemporary Writing, and the World Literature Today publication. She's got all kinds of accolades, all the wonderful things. I could tell you all about them all day, but the one thing that I really want to tell you about right now is that she has a book that has just come out earlier this year. It's called Black Cake, Turtle Soup, and Other Dilemmas, Essays on Music, Memory, and Motion. And you all are about to get a taste. Ladies and gentlemen, please make some noise for Gloria Blizzard. And applaud her all the way to the stage.
What a lovely introduction. So yeah, this is my new book, my first book. And I thought I would read excerpts from 3 essays, just to give you a bit of a flavor for a lot of the things that I investigate and talk about and think about and are sharing with you today. This is from an essay called Water. I'm trying to figure out what's the best way to negotiate this thing. Okay, there we go. How's that? Yes. All right. No fiddling with it. Okay. This is from Water. One day, without notice to myself or lessons of any kind, suddenly I could swim. I was 7. It was as if a memory of some internal amniotic instructions arose within me. That day I went to a party in the hills at the home of a very rich person, or rather the party of a child with parents who had a grand Trinidad mountainside home. I remember that amongst the clatter and the laughter and the splashing around of the other girls, I calmly entered the slight chill of blue chlorinated water, floated and then paddled, head held high above the surface. I was fully at ease with myself, immersed and comfortable, pleased and smiling. Within a year or so after my parents provided formal swimming lessons, I joined a competitive swim team, swam my first mile, and saved my baby brother from drowning. This might be a story of grace. It might be a story of saving others and being saved over and over again by a shadow, an essence, a person, a scenario. It might be the story of the power of water. It might be the story of how water holds intertwined cross-continental memories, or how it activates the dormant seed of emotion. Or it might be just a story of amniotic instructions in an oft-repeated first breath. Life, it seems, is a sequence of near drownings, rising to the surface and falling again. During childhood in Port of Spain, Trinidad, my younger brother Carlos and I were at the YMCA pool where I'd recently swum the 72 laps that made my first mile. This was recreation swim time, however, And as I dove in and out of the deep end, I kept an eye on my 5-year-old brother as he practiced his new skill, floating on his back and kicking and making a glorious splashing sound. His head would dart in random directions with the effort of his pumping little feet. Then he'd stand jumping in the shallow water, wiping chlorinated water from his eyes and nose. As I knew that he did not yet know how to swim, I checked to see if the lifeguard was watching him. She was about 14, sitting with her back against the concrete pool house, scanning the waters. I caught her eye, then I looked at my brother. Her gaze did not follow mine, her head moving slowly up and down the length of the pool. Then my brother was on his back again, head definitively pointed toward deep waters, and he was kicking hard. I knew that in seconds he would be vertical, his legs trying to touch the bottom. When he moved to stand, I saw the look on his face as the lack of ground beneath him registered. He flailed. I raced toward him in the fastest front crawl that my 8-year-old self could muster. As I reached him, he grabbed me around the neck and squeezed, his legs curled around my chest. I could not breathe, and we both sank below the surface. When my feet touched the pool bottom, I pulled at his arms as he unwittingly strangled me and pushed off the pool's cement floor as hard as I could. I would repeat this desperate routine, pull his arms from my neck, jump, breathe in, sink. Pull his arms from my neck, jump, breathe in, sink. By now, my brother had maneuvered himself onto my back, legs around my torso, arms still around my neck. Beneath my feet, I could feel the concrete slanting upward. I knew somehow that if I could push up on an angle leaning in that direction, I could move us closer to the shallow end. As soon as I could stand, I untangled his arms from my neck and pulled him to the pool's edge. He scrambled and I pushed, and then he was on the deck breathing rapidly, coughing and wiping his face. I looked immediately to the lifeguard. She'd seen nothing and slowly turned her head mechanically from side to side, as if scanning the water in a performance of lifeguarding. So I thought I would read from another essay. This one was commissioned by an anthology where it's called Bad Artists, and the intention was to find out people's approach to making art within the challenges of modern life and how we manage to do that. So this is a section of the essay. It's called Advice. I found an essay entitled How to Be an Artist According to Georgia O'Keeffe, written by Alexa Godhart. The painter had a daily routine with much time alone in her studio. She wrote once to a friend, "I was at work before 8, stopped a couple of hours at noon, then at it again till 6. I will be at it again tomorrow." The essay mentions the efficiency of ritual and neatness and the organization of space. I think that the greatest efficiencies lie within the single mother artist who still manages to write a line of a poem sometime within a 6-month span, and it is a good line. The hardest part is to learn to be okay with one line when there is space for nothing else. It may be difficult to calm the yearning and not pine too much for one time and energy, to be okay with the beautiful phrase. Whoops. That was really good tea. What a shame. Okay, so I'll just reread okay. It may be difficult to calm the yearning and not pine too much for more time and energy, to be okay with the beautiful phrase, crafted in the mind, while sitting, working, feeding, managing. The most efficient use of the creative impulse sometimes is to harness it and tell it to wait, while you keep self and others alive. Metro, boulot, dodo, work, feed, fall down. Then act in the corners of time. Sometimes to be efficient, it is best to eat an orange, Feel the sweet nectar drip from your lips and onto your neck and down beneath your tired clothing. And then for 1 second, bird-like, look up. I advise one to carry a notebook at all times, a small one that does not take up much space on your person or in your thoughts, because your being is required elsewhere. I advise one to keep a close eye on doors when sitting on the subway. The public transit state of vigilance is common amongst most Black people, many women, and mothers traveling with children of any age. This positioning allows self a modicum less anxiety in a public place. And as the train slows to a stop at each station, you can note easily who gets on. It allows one to stay vigilant and yet have a fleeting freedom when for a moment you must disappear into a phrase. Write out your worries first in the notebook, I'd say. Spill out all the concerns about food, foyer, and family court. After you've done that, and perhaps found a temporary respite, the art will come. It always does. You just don't know if you'll get to the end of your worries before disembarkment at Eglinton Station, where you do mindless work to pay for food, foyer, family court. Maybe by then you'll have written a phrase. If so, it is a good art day. Maybe it is even a beautiful phrase. Accept long fallow periods. This is also artistic work. You must wait until someone stops banging on the door, until the child stops crying, until you can breathe again. Eat, go outside, if you can. Walk the city streets for a second or two, whatever is available to you, if the children are old enough for you to do this. Otherwise, stay put. During these fallow periods, dance, sing, wait, hold, 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 until. The being rests and builds up inspiration and courage, and when all full up, as it feels to me, produces a creative act, one poem, a flourish of an arm. Oh, and carry a seed, I mean it. Carry a seed in your left hand or your right. Paint your belly in magnificent colors under your clothes to remember who you are. The time will arise again in a glorious panache, if only for 1 second or a few. The discipline is holding against the pull of distraction that would keep you immobilized. Note how you are held under. Note how you are held back. Note that it is not your failure. Acknowledge the energy expended while also navigating Blackness through colonialist structures and the mentalities that embolden them. See how some imagine their own injury as they cause harm, as they try to silence you with their shivering tears. See clearly who might try to shut you down. There are those who would let you drown. Write, dance through to the other side of this knowing. Something lies there. It can be beauty. It could be art. The discipline is kindness to self when none of this is possible. The discipline is forgiving yourself when you cannot do it all and lying down to rest, if only for a moment. Thank you. Thanks. And I have one little other piece, which is more joyful. It's from an essay called Joy. 1/4-inch wide strips of elastic sewn onto soft pink fabric by our mothers held our ballet slippers onto our feet. We wore flesh-toned tights on our little brown legs. My parents spoke of dancers Beryl McBurney and Geoffrey Holder. They openly admired writers like C.L.R. James and Derek Walcott. I don't think, however, that they expected me to take their unspoken messages about the importance of such things quite so seriously, resulting in me becoming a poet with a propensity for dancing. I proceeded to study science at university as expected, where I dabbled in ballet and African dance clubs. I then drifted from dance and did not enter a studio again until decades later, this time with a sense of urgency. At that point, my hands were hurting from playing percussion in an escola de samba. I was disoriented, post-divorce, frightened, and worn out by the relentless search for emotional safety and material survival. The band had performed often with samba dancers. They looked fabulous in feathers, eyelash extensions, glitter, and heels. They moved powerfully and sensually through space. I need some of that, I thought. I laid down my drumsticks and found myself a dance class. Samba was taught by an Italian-Canadian who'd studied herself out of ballet and into considerable expertise in Afro-Brazilian dance. Women in the North cannot move their hips, she'd said. I'm from the Caribbean, I've got this, I thought. I looked in the dance studio mirror and saw stiffness as I moved my own ample hips side to side. I did not have it. Years of ballet had not prepared me well. She told us that we were all beauties, that we were goddesses. She said our bodies were luscious and glorious. Your hips are to be shaken. If the flesh on your thighs is not jiggling, it's not samba, she yelled. I learned about the origins of samba in the Afro-Brazilian religion of candomblé. When I danced the orisha Manja, I became the goddess of the sea, mother, protector, and was fluid and sensual with the infinite power of the waves. When I danced Shango, the male god of justice, I threw bolts of lightning at the sky. I was fiery, direct, and clear in my intentions. As a shumare, the snake, I slithered through the grass. My right hand was the head. I used it to bite and stop someone in their tracks, while my left arm, the snake's tail, swung around to point to indicate a better way to live. I was Osai, the medicine man who drank too much. I stumbled around and yet made brilliant medicines out of plants from the forest. In these movements, we explored how to be one thing and yet another, fierce and generous, resilient and wild, to hold a multitude of selves, a multitude of possibilities. Perhaps the movement vocabulary of Afro-Brazilian dance, of samba, can inform a new way for me to live. The weekly gathering of women always began with flourishes of supported hugs, kisses, compliments. As my joints and muscles became supple, I learned to move joyously, taking up space in my worlds. I was re-energized, rediscovering resilience, balance, sensuality. I never did wear the feathers and heels, but I learned to move through the world as if I was powerfully, playfully, sensually wearing them. And then one day I did. I put them on, all of them. The shiny red body-fitting suit, the heels, the makeup, and I'll stop there. There's tea on the floor, I'm sorry.
Don't worry about that. I'm just worried about how hot it started to get up here right at the end. I'm like, I'm like, this is a family show. Everyone, please make some noise for Gloria. It's fantastic. And as we say, her book, which was published by Dundurn Press, it's available outside. So when we take our break, you can go pick up a copy, chat with Gloria by the table. It's being sold on her behalf by Blue Heron Books, one of our partners in this event. And it's the only independent bookstore of its kind in Durham region. They're based up in Uxbridge, and they are big supporters. So we're a big fan of independent books, right? There you go. All right. So I'm going to move right along to our second featured performer. And thank you once again so much, Gloria. It's so great. I have the pleasure of introducing this brother. As many of you may know, I've been doing spoken word for a really long time. So now this is my 22nd year in poetry. And oh, I didn't expect that. That's okay, but thank you. You're so kind. I'm blushing. I'm blushing. But I don't know. I think he's probably been at it at least a dozen years now. Exactly. See, the old man still got a little bit going on in the brain cells. But I remember when this young man first started coming through the shows and stuff. I'm like, who is this kid? He's got a little something, you know? You can see the kids who come to the shows who are just there because it's something fun to do. And then there are some who, as you listen to their work and you see them work on their craft, their stage presence, their skills, you know that this is a person who not only takes the work seriously, but takes the gift of what they have seriously. And that is something that Scribe has always demonstrated all throughout his spoken word career. This man has touched hip-hop stages. You know, he's been on stage with The Roots, Socrates. He's got some skills. I don't know, maybe he'll break that off for us. He is a 4-time finalist at the Canadian Festival of Spoken Word, the Team Slam Championships for the nation of Canada, and is a past champion from the year 2019. I am telling you, this man has the magic. He's got a couple of books that are out for sale out in the lobby, so you'll be able to come check him on that. I'll let him show you exactly why I was so excited and why I have been trying for probably a little over a year to get him to come. It's been just a series of unfortunate events that has prevented it, but now everything has finally aligned. Ladies and gentlemen, please make some noise for Joshua Watkis, AKA Scribe.
One, two. How we feeling? Woo. While excellent as a response on stage, and I'll never complain about it, is not a response to the question, how are you doing? How are we doing? I like those answers. I heard well, I heard great. If you're not okay, that's also okay too. It's okay not to be okay. I'm gonna just move this up a little bit. Don't worry about me. I got it. Yeah. It's only been a decade and plus. 1, 2. I didn't know what I was going to do when I got here. And then me being the person that I am, just kind of followed the vibe, and I have a set list now. And we're just going to follow a little bit of a journey. Cool? Cool. But let's start bridging some gaps. The laws of physics state that nothing ever really touches. Our brains merely interpret the proximity of our atoms to the atoms nearest us, tuning us into their vibrations. We are forever shaking apart from one another. Molecular infinities are physically impassable dividers. The laws of physics state that nothing ever really touches. And yet, I have seen a believer's hallelujah well in the eyes of an atheist, heard thrumming stadiums, tons of tumbling tongues, strangers bound by love in choral unison. The laws of physics state that nothing ever really touches. And yet, when my wife nuzzles her head into my soft chest and my hand runs over her hardening belly, our conceived unborn between us, I know there is an overpass bypassing every atomic chasm, that even you, now, at whatever distance these words have stretched, are now greeting me in the ether, our minds and hearts connected, melding together. The laws of physics state that nothing ever really touches. Still, we know the law-breaking truth. Hold the contradictory evidence as our most pleasurable treasure. By some impossible measure, all existence is tethered. Thank you. To follow along with that theme of connection, but also to follow it down a little bit of a darker path, is this poem. To break generational curses, one must reverse the original incantation, inverse and uproot them from the earth by speaking new cycles into truth. We don't like to talk about the underbelly of black magic, the rot in the wood of our family trees, the way even if you excel at manifesting your dreams, chains run deeper than being enslaved or free in my family. The men who bear my last name bear the curses of funhouse mirrors, flames, and turntable DNA for me, for the men in my family. Generational curses activate the moment you attempt to develop your own reality for me, for the men in my family. Abandonment escapes the womb by clutching the ankle of its twin. We cannot desert what we did not first attempt loving, mating, or making kin. Me and the men in my family laugh as we burn down fun houses in our sleep, then wake up to ash and scattered glass, wondering why we can't find any peace, and how it happened doesn't matter. It only matters that it did. My parents' divorce made it apparent to me that I couldn't let this happen when I had kids, and now my first is on its way. As I'm writing this, their gender and sex only God and the ultrasound technicians can say, and if I'm honest, I'm terrified of having a son. Not because of gangbangers or cops with guns, but because it means I have to be the one who undoes all the curses, healing generations of damage already done. I have never met my father's father. All their encounters can be counted on one hand, so when I say that my father's absence is understandable, I mean my dad is better than his at being present. But his style of black magic still presents itself like a vanishing act. He never disappears from me, though. When my life is full, when I finally find space to laugh, his voice bursts through my joy. When I stare in mirrors, they funhouse my mother's features, pull up every trace of his DNA, and when they rest on my face, all I want to do is burn his resemblance away. And I imagine this cycle has been on replay for as long as we have been unable to turn the tables, unwilling to do the painful work to catch the match and scratch the wax before fire tracks that sends curses coursing through our home starts to play. I heard once that men either try to imitate or destroy their fathers. In my life, those things are one and the same, so today, I break the mold. Today, I reverse the curse and create a new kind of family man. Today, inside me, a shrieking double helix quiets, cools. The funhouse folds into one unburnt reflection. My gaze meets itself, ceases seeking to punish my forefathers by sabotaging my own life. My glass image gains gentle palms and permission to leave the arson homes the deadbeats past. At last, I am adored and feel no call to cremation. At last, I can live a full life without the fear that I will burn it all down. Thank you very much. Thank you all so much for your attentiveness and your responsiveness. It means a lot. As a spoken word poet, especially, I love writing page poetry and I love rapping. But as a spoken, and I don't want to say it dismissively, I love them both very passionately, in the same way that I love spoken word very passionately. But as a spoken word poet, the things I hope to receive as I perform are different than the things I hope to receive as a page poet when people read, and as a hip hop artist while people listen. So please, if you feel so inclined, raise your right or your left hand. I can see you from up here, so I know you don't got like something that's not your hands. So if you could take your hand, I'm dead serious, like put one of your hands in the air at least. You have a middle finger and a thumb, press them together. Give me a quick little. Yeah, so if you're feeling something tonight, please feel free to respond in such a way. It would make my heart glad. It'll make your body feel like it's resonating. And we can do this thing called a reciprocal art form where we share within the energy. And I hope that y'all continue to enjoy the rest of this set. If you haven't guessed, I write poetry, and I have 2 books out there, as Greg was so kind to mention. The first poem you heard was from Tethered. The poem is so aptly named Tethered. It's the title of the book for a reason. It's about connection and bonds and relationships, not just between people, but between the metaphysical and us and all that goes on. You're free to grab that one. The second set of poems a collection of poems is a set I wrote in twofold. The first, to the country of Canada, because it's important that we navigate speaking about anti-Black racism here. We often have the habit of speaking and referring to American history when we speak about anti-Black racism, and while that has its uses, Canada is a plenty racist country all on its own. It doesn't need no help. It comes from the same place. And the second half, I'll tell you about in a minute. You'll pick it up, though. They will try, my love, to convince you that the problem of racism and its wiles are more severe south of us. They will wear many faces. Teachers, historians, politicians, and your neighbors. So to them, I suggest you pose this question. Is the brother who shoots you less evil than the sister who poisons you with her home-cooked meals? They expect you to, and may have forgotten themselves, that Canada and America are siblings in every sense that nations can be. America, the emancipated rebel child. Canada, mother's condescending protege. Lucy's demon spawn. Identical in nature, dressed differently to play the same game. The West was founded far east of us. Across the same ocean they shipped our four families over. France and Britain built on the cornerstones composed of Africa's scabs. They will try, oh, they will try, my daughter, to disconnect sister from brother, but white women violent as they brothers, uncles, nephews, fathers, lovers. Big bro just got flashy toys to do the killing. World expects him to flash, bang, bang, all proud. Little sister, sinister, secretive. Sister, secretive, she mischievous, know all her mama's dirty tricks, hides toxins on her knives, then hides the bodies through politics. Baby, they had slaves here too. Whips, chains, and tortures unnamed here too. Redlining and legal segregation here too. Phantom white hoods and crosses dressed in flames barred those fleeing slavery with pseudo-scientific claims too. Canada's so good at the hush-hush, she often can't even catch herself slipping. Convinced that her quiet kind of killing makes her better than boisterous big brother when they funded by the same blood bank. I visited their mother once. Stood at the gates of England's royal palace. Set eyes on the inspiration of our nation. Your daddy knew then that he could never be a patriot. How could I be? Knowing that the only places we have ever lived would steal you away from me. That is the inspiration. It is from my second book, Black Blossom, Harsh North. The second half is a collection of poems written to Canada. The first is a collection of poems written to my daughter about surviving anti-Black Canadian racism, because we can only equip our children with knowledge about how to survive racism one way, but if we don't challenge the system itself, what's the point? Give them 30% of the battle is not going to win them the war. So I wrote a collection of poems for her. But they're not all about suffering, because if we're to help Black children survive anything, we have to give them joy in themselves as well. So I'm going to end on two poems of that nature. Praise be. To be Black is secondary to being human. Even when the noun/adjective comes first, you are a person. Before Black, before woman, before gender or orientation, before culture or nation, and while all of these are both of importance and consequence, they must not dictate your palate. Taste everything that pleasures your tongue, so long as it does not harm you to ingest. Soak in the sound waves that pleasure your ear without regard for how others feel about your preference. Like what you like, Black girl. Enjoy your life, Black girl. There is no one way for you to shine your light, Black girl. You better go hard for what you believe is tight, Black girl. Keep any haters out your mind and out of sight, Black girl, and above all else, remember that the Black girls before you probably made all the trends they say aren't Black enough pop. From your body down to the clothes you rock, you owe the world not one monolithic performance, not one way of speaking or presenting yourself. If anything, Black girl, the world owes you the opportunity to live in the fullness of yourself. So to yourself, Black girl, stay true. And this final poem, while I wrote it for my daughter, I wrote it for all of the Black women in my life and who I might come across. I think as a Black man, I hate saying as a Black man as a qualifier, but I'm a Black man and I grew up in the 90s. And I remember in equal part what it meant to love your sister and hate your sister. I know what it meant in equal part to find safety in the black women you called family and also be the most unsafe place for them. And I don't have no sisters, I only have brothers. But I watched it. I watched it with my homegirls on the playground. I watched it happen to my cousins on the playground and in churches and in different governmental circles and at jobs. And there comes a time where as a man, you have to make the decision to refuse to be that, to be a safe space, to be a safe place, to be a safe person. And you realize that as you do that, what you're actually doing is just loving yourself. And the more you love yourself, the more you can love the people around you, and the more intentionally you begin to love the people around you. And so I wrote this half for her and for y'all, but also for me as a reminder that it ain't nothing more beautiful than us. So, in all my life, I've never seen anything prettier than our people smiling. The coy and the kind and the joy, lifting cheekbones, parting the curtain of lips, each row of teeth a dazzling constellation, an undeniable testament to the iridescence of the black spirit when we laugh. You can hear the jewels of our mouths cascading over the thick of life like soothing rapids. I find my peace in the space between a well-placed joke and the nostalgia of a song we all love. How the weight of the world falls into the ease of a two-step. We alchemize atmosphere, breathe life into the wind by the simple force of an inhale and a grin each smile. A dip into the well of uninhibited humanity, able to access jubilee despite our trials and tribulations. Can you imagine anything more beautiful than seeing a black woman crack a smile? Her skin the night sky, her happiness to the nearest star at dawn, and being filled with the understanding that the same kind of light lives in you. Thank you. Appreciate your time. Love and peace. Enjoy the rest of your night.
Make some more noise for Scribe, everybody. So that brings us to our intermission, but wasn't that sick? Gloria and Scribe just crushed it, knocked it out the park. I don't know which park it is. It's a soccer park or a baseball park or a cricket park. All I know is that the ball flew out. It's gone. They knocked it out. So we're going to take a little break, a little pause for the cause right now. We've got our black business people out in the foyer area. Please go out there, support them. It's Christmas time. They need to buy gifts for their families. So, get yourself a little something, something. We've got Tea's Creations. We've got the Baker's Lab. We've got Patty Gal. Josh is, Patty Gal. Oh, yes. And Josh is selling his books, so come by the table and come check that out. Gloria's going to be by the Blue Heron table selling stuff. I'm selling T-shirts based on my signature poem, Home is Here, so if you want to check that out, I'm selling stuff. It's all good, sometimes you got to be a merchant too. And we will see you back after for the fireside chat, discussion, Q&A, all of that. See you shortly. All right, so folks, very excited to have an opportunity to just chat with Gloria and Josh for a bit. Did you guys enjoy going out and partaking of our black business people out in the foyer? Yes, it's foyer, I'm in Francais. Thank you very much for coming and supporting and being part of that. Just before we get into the chat, I want to let you all know that our next event is going to be in here in February. And what's really exciting about our next event is that we're going to have Dwayne Morgan as our feature. Thanks, Josh. But the main focus of the event actually isn't going to be Dwayne. What we are asking is for the young people in the community of all backgrounds to write in whatever literary style moves them, whether that's in prose, in poetry, in dub, storytelling, whatever the case may be, on the theme of Black history and bring their work here to the stage so that we can hear and share and encourage the young people of the community to share their works and their words. And Dwayne will be here to encourage them and to talk to them and show them a little bit of what he does, and we will all be witnesses to that magic of having those young people here on this stage. So if you have not already done so, mark your calendar, come in here. It's the 19th. I got the date right, I think. Yeah, the 19th of February, that third Wednesday, just before the long weekend. Come through. Tell the young people in your community that that's what we're doing, and encourage them to write something to come and bring and share. We're going to try to get as many of them up here as we can, and we're going to have ourselves a good time. So I just wanted to let you all know that. All right. Thank you. Thank you. And for tonight, we got Josh and Gloria. I'm just going to talk to them a little bit quick, and then I'll open up to the audience, and you all can ask questions, make comments. Let us know what you felt about the words that they shared this evening. So both of you are poets, because although Gloria read from her collection of essays, she's also quite an accomplished poet as well. And both of you are experienced on microphones. So I wanted you to maybe talk a little bit about the difference in the literary expression between what you write down and what you say through a mic. You can maybe talk a little bit about that, just to start off.
I'm more junior at the at the latter of those, the on the page versus the mic. My relationship to them is intention, I think. First and foremost, I started writing raps when I was 14, and so I was always writing to be heard first and foremost. I was less concerned with structure and form and all of those things. And that's still very much true now in terms of how I write for the microphone versus how I write for the page. I'm still very new to form. Form, as far as I understand it, is mostly taught by those who are educated in it. I say mostly key, because I don't know if everybody learned that way. But I was introduced to form in 2018, 2019. Tethered, if you bought a copy of Tethered, congratulations, you'll get my first attempt at form. I wrote a pantoum to close the book. And so my relationship to form is fairly new. When you write for people only to read, you have to remove all assumption that someone will hear the intonation of your voice or assume the assumption of rhythm. You have to make sure that every word is kind of carved with the precision necessary for a person to imagine it vividly and to hear it vividly without ever hearing the words. And so I think that's the main difference in the relationship for me.
Cool.
I started as a poet, and then I moved into songwriting. And then I started to write about music, and that led eventually to the essay form. And interestingly enough, people will often say to me, I really love that poem that you read, and I'm reading from the book of essays. So, and the essays actually have lyrics of some of my songs in them. So I actually don't differentiate between poetry, songwriting, essays, speaking to the audience. They all kind of work together for me. Yeah.
Okay. And it's the holiday season, right? And folks are in a festive and celebratory mood, generally speaking. But then there are also those folks who are feeling the heaviness, the folks who have gone through difficult past experiences that have happened during this kind of holiday period. I bring that up because I think about just the different energies that you both brought in your readings, because there was some joy and there was some sorrow in both of how you both created. How does that work in your mind in terms of like when you're creating and you start to go down a joyful path, or as opposed to more sorrowful or more meditative path? Like, what is going through your mind? How is your creative process working?
I'm going to start because at a certain point when I was writing a lot of songs, I realized that all my songs were about breakups. And I realized that was my inspiration, was a feeling of sadness or a feeling of distress or anger or whatever. And I had to deliberately choose to have a different starting point, to write from a place of joy. So, I mean, I think the human mind just kind of likes to focus on what's not going well, and sometimes it takes real effort and practice to kind of focus over on the other side and to find a mitigated experience that kind of balances both.
Yeah, easy there, Adele.
Truly, though, it is like that. I remember when I met my wife, we had a conversation about half a year into our relationship. She's like, "You don't write anything happy, can you?" And not like asking me to, but like was asking like, "Are you capable of writing from any space other than negativity?" And I was going through a really difficult time with my writing at that point, and it was because I was happy. Like I was in a positive space, and I'm like, I can't dip back into this well of negativity right now. Like I can't, like I thrive, and I'm a fairly balanced person now, but I still very much thrive on negativity, and I do, and the challenge for me was noting like, is there any beauty in joy? Like, is there? And the obvious answer was yes, and then the important thing for me then was to evolve into a person who could deliberately capture that joy and do it well and to honor that joy. And then once I was able to do that, I was also able to write with nuance and capture both fluidly.
Beautiful.
I just want to add a little anecdote. I remember when I was working with a band, at the time I had my own band, and I came into rehearsal one day and I said, "Yeah, I just broke up with my boyfriend." And my drummer goes, "Fantastic, we're gonna get a good song out of that." So I was just like, okay, it doesn't need to always be that, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, it doesn't always need to be that, but yo, honestly, some of my very best stuff has come when I've been really angry or really sad. Like,
Yeah.
you know, that's just the energy that comes through, right?
But I feel like it's the only place we're allowed to do it it's twofold. We share pain, right? That's one of the main things that connects human beings, is being able to look at another person and say, "You've been through what I've been through." James Baldwin talks about that all the time. To be able to look at somebody else and say, "I'm not alone in my experience." Pain's important for us to be able to share consciously. But I think in the same breath, when we channel that, it's not necessarily something we want to remain in as our connector.
Right.
And so, I mean, like, it's obvious we look to share pain and to gather amongst each other and around each other through pain so that we feel understood. But our joy is necessary for that as well, to be able to collectively look at each other and be like, "You are worth smiling at and smiling to."
Yes, absolutely.
yeah.
Exactly. Wear that smile for a little while. Yeah. Beautiful. All right, I think I'm going to open up to the audience. Judith, you've got your mic, yes? So folks, if you have a question or a comment that you want to make, just wave down the Jamaican woman with the Canadian flag on her shoulder. And it looks like Paul's got a question.
Yeah, so my question is for Gloria, and it's with regard to the title, Black Cake Turtle Soup. I'm just curious as to why that title and...
Sure. It kind of relates to the theme of the book. Black cake is, as many of us know, is something we eat around Christmas time, those of us from the Caribbean, and it's made up of many disparate ingredients, none of which are indigenous to the Caribbean. And so so there's like a theme that I'm saying, that historically there's so much involved. First of all, so many historical themes in the making of black cake that are related to the Atlantic slave trade, that are related to so many different things, aspects of culture. And at the same time, this is something we give to each other. We give to each other around Christmas time. It's a gift, it's beautiful, it's full of love. And it's also made with burnt sugar, so it's also bitter. You know, so that's kind of the basis of it, like it's both. And then turtle soup, that is another, has a historical kind of aspect to it. Turtle soup was given to my family in Trinidad by our neighbors who were Chinese. And so that's another aspect of history that we don't often look at, i.e., African people were stolen and kidnapped and taken to the Caribbean. There were also indentured people from China and from India and from Ireland and from Scotland who were also brought there. And so these were our neighbors, and that led to kind of a culture with a lot of multiplicities. And so turtle soup is, it's a reference to that, and it also connects to turtles in Canada. So it's like the title includes many things. And then dilemmas, it's just like all the other stuff that happens, right? So many things, so many quandaries that we have to look at through life.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Paul. I see Judith is looking around. She's kind of scared. It's all good. Yes, there's one up in front. Come now. Make a move like a Jamaican woman.
My question is, who inspires your writing? Sometimes we have a writing mentor. Like when I was in grade school, it used to be Maya Angelou. Do you either of you have a writing mentor?
Yeah, he's coming here in February. Yeah,
Exactly.
Dwayne Morgan, I would say, is like the top for my mentors, the people I look at for writing. To give like the context of our relationship, I came into the Roots Lounge, which was an open mic and poetry slam in downtown Toronto. It was running out of the Harlem back in the day. And when I came in, I was talking to Greg earlier, I was very much a fiery young poet and trying to prove he was much more kind about it than I would be if I was him. I was fiery and I was well in over my head and I was trying to be the best in the game without knowing who was in the game. I just kind of showed up and decided to play. And Dwayne was kind of like my pinnacle target. Dwayne was the guy who ran this thing. He was nicknamed the Godfather of spoken word in Canada. And I was like, that's what I could get it. It's mine. I was 19, 20, stupid. We joke all the time that Dwayne's career is the span of my life. And I'm 31 now, so you can imagine at 20 being very proud and not humble. How I was humbled over and over and over and over and over and over and over again at poetry slams. He beat me for years and years, and he to this day he still could. But he's shaped my writing a lot. He's forced introspection, and he's forced me to look at my work and be like, what are you trying to say? To ask myself the question, like, what are you actually trying to prove and point out and express? He's forced me to be calm with the subjects of my writing and say, 10 years from now, do you want to be the person who said this? And forced me to be reflective. He's forced me to be honest with myself about when my writing is not good. Go back, write it again. Go back, figure out what you're saying. Go back, this could be improved. And he's also been there to encourage me when I do well and to build me up into a person who can build others up. He has made me a mentor to so many people in my community. And if you look at the work I've been able to do, which is at this point in my career is a lot, and especially with those I've mentored, all of that flowers from the work he was able to do. And I've had many others. Greg's looked over my page and held me accountable. So many great poets have looked over me, but I say like top of Dwayne Morgan for sure.
I'm inspired by so many things. I'm inspired by writers, by musicians, by dancers. In terms of musicians, I would say Coltrane is huge. And in terms of dancers, there's a Brazilian woman that I studied with in Brazil, Rosângela Silvestre, who's not only a dancer, she's also like a philosopher, and she's developed her own theories of dance and so on. It's like the understanding that movement is a vocabulary, and it's also a way of, it informs my work, it informs my writing. In terms of writers, there's an American music writer, his name is Hanif Abdurraqib. He was recently here in Toronto, and he wrote a book of music essays where they can't kill us till they kill us.
Yeah, he's super dope.
He's amazing because that informed me in that he was writing, supposedly he was writing music reviews, but they were also personal essays at the same time. So that really kind of informed how I write about music. There's always a personal element when I'm doing reviews or even in my essays when I'm writing about musicians or so on. And also there's Alicia Elliott. She's an Indigenous writer here in Canada, and she writes braided essays, which is like the intersection of multiple things. And that was a huge influence on me. Yeah, I'll stop there. I could go on for a really, really long time because there's so many great artists.
It's amazing. I'm actually going to answer this question too, just because I think people need to know this. So I had my two mentors come and feature at this show last year, and that is George Elliott Clarke and Afua Cooper. I met Afua at the Dub Poetry Festival that they held in Peterborough an age ago. And she just kind of sat me down and she was like, look, this is what the game is about. This is what's going to happen. And these are some of the things you need to look at. And these are some of the things you might want to think about writing about. And I've always been going to her, talking to her, running my stuff past her. I'm so excited. She has decided to leave Dalhousie and she's coming to U of T Scarborough. So I'm so excited that she's going to be local. It's a huge thing. And of course, George. I mean, George is the man. Like, George is the man. But also, George is like, he'll look at your stuff. He sent me a note the other day because I sent him some poems, and because he's got this project that he does about transcribing some of these poems and creating songs out of them. And so he asked me to submit some of my work. So I sent it to him, and he sent it back with this beautiful little card. And he's like, "Do you want me to edit these?" And I'm like, "What are you trying to say, George?" I'm like, I guess maybe those poems need a little bit of work. Okay, cool. I've only had those poems for like 15 years. Okay, cool. But yes, of course. George Elliott Clarke, yes, you can edit my poetry. Like, it's unbelievable. But so you have those mentors, and then you also have your peers who influence you. People like Scribe has influenced me, as I watch his youthful energy try to bun up my backside, so, and Dwayne, who I've been friends with since I was 18, you spend time with these folks, and like you did in 2019, I won a championship with him in 2012. So like Dwayne has this wide-reaching reach, and then there's also these powerful women who are in our scene as well, who are doing incredible work. One that comes to mind instantly is the Indigenous artist Mo Clark, who is amazing. She does poetry, she uses loop pedals to create soundscapes, she does a lot of really interesting and cool things, and is just a really cool person to know. So there's all of these different influences out there, and we just all listen to each other, beg, borrow, and steal, for real, and then we make the art.
Hi, thank you. I don't even know where to start with my comment. I think I'm old enough to remember a time when being a Black Canadian writer was not cool, where I, as a writer and as a broadcaster, would look to the States for direction on a lot of things. I really appreciated, Scribe, that your poem was about Canada and the racist pieces there. Like, it was very anchored here. And Gloria, I really appreciate with you that you also anchor yourself as a Canadian writer. I just wanted to know why you do that, why you're choosing that subject matter, Canada as a subject. I have so many questions. And what you feel are the trends or things that need to start happening in Black literature as a Canadian writer. What are you experiencing, and what do you think needs to start happening? Those are two separate
They're
questions.
completely separate.
Okay, so.
What was the first one?
What was my first question? Why do you choose Canada as a subject?
Yeah.
Oh.
And why do you, like, as an important, why are you centering it? That might be an obvious answer.
Well,
But
I remember when I first got signed with Dunder, and the acquiring editor said to me, "Thank you for writing this, because we don't often see ourselves as Black Canadians as the subject matter." And I wrote it because I couldn't write anything else. I couldn't write from another place. And I really felt that that was a valid story. I didn't have to try to speak from a place where I was not. That would be like coming outside of oneself and trying to write in. And so it was important to speak from that place.
Yeah, I think similarly, I have strong feelings about this country. When I was young, I remember taking home social studies homework. Y'all took social studies? And one of the things we brought home was reports on the Pilgrims, or whatever they wanted to call themselves back then. And my dad saw my homework, which is super rare because I always hid my homework from my dad. And he said, "This is not what happened." I was like 10, 11. And so he took my brother and I to a Chapters, because it was Chapters back then, and we found books on Canadian Black history, and we just read. And that destroyed my faith in the Canadian school education system, like all of it. At a very young age, I was like, oh, I'm super cynical about this place. They told us this is where they ran away from slavery, and there was slavery here. And they told us that this was a safe place when they got here, and they made Black Canadian or Black Americans running away from slavery sleep in snowbanks because they didn't want to give them homes, because they said it wasn't natural for us to be up here because of the climate, when Europeans nearly died coming up here as they crossed the ocean because they didn't know how to survive. And so it was very insidious from a very young age that we only ever spoke about American Blackness. And I knew that from age 10, and so for me, that became a part of my identity. But also, I'm very proud to be from Toronto. Like, if I go, my dad lived in the States for a really lives in the States now, but I was going to the States from when I was a child, and the racism I experienced there was not the racism I experienced living here. It just wasn't. And so to write about being Black from that perspective, when my perspective is very, very different, why not? Like, there is physical violence here. There are sundown towns here, but there's a different experience psychologically. And if we don't write about it, we feel crazy. We feel strange, and so it was necessary to document it.
Yeah,
There's a name for that. It's called hermetic harm, I believe, something like that, where something causes harm, but you don't know what it is because it doesn't have a name and it's not recognized by anybody. And I think it's important to find those places and to write from them. Also, I spent much of my youth in Trinidad. I was born up here, but I spent a lot of my childhood in the Caribbean. So I also had the perspective of knowing that I was fine and ordinary and just perfectly okay in that culture. So when I came here, I was shocked. I came back here as a teenager, and I was shocked by things don't they know that everybody bleeds the same color? You know, it was new to me.
Yeah.
You had a second part of your question.
Yeah, what was the second? Yeah, it's turning on right now.
Check. Okay.
There you go.
No, and that's pretty much what I expected you or thought you would say. And I did, as Gloria knows, I did master's work and focused on Canada too, because like you both, I felt like there wasn't enough written about the Canadian experience, which I think you're both touching on. And now I'm seeing trends of more Canadian academic work. What are you seeing? That's the second question. Are the trends that you're seeing in Canadian literature work? Are there more poets? Are people getting published? Is there more interest in publishing Canadian writers, Black Canadian writers? What is happening in the industry for you as a career writer?
It's interesting because I have a really different approach to literature. Like, I'm a spoken word poet, right? And spoken word was really only recognized as a form of poetry sometime in the last 30 years because of the work of folks like Lillian Allen, right? And eliminating, I've said this like 8 times in the last 2 months, and it's because I've been talking about poetry history a lot more, but the elimination of the one poem town and getting rid of that kind of monolith recognized by the Canadian League of Poets, right? And so seeing trends happen, like I'm seeing a bunch of people get published now, but only in recent years with the bringing over of different publishing houses that like started other side of the border. So like other side interest, bringing on people who might be interested. And then also, if we're gonna keep a buck, with the reckoning that happened in 2020, I put that in quotations because they never reckon with anything. There was an interest financially in getting Black people on board for publications or some sort of presentation. So there's been an expansion of recognized Black work, but I don't think there's been any sort of wide acceptance or receptiveness or hope to continue that work and develop it and embed it as part of culture. So those are like, I'm seeing more, but more doesn't mean rooted, more doesn't mean well-financed, more doesn't mean well-resourced, more doesn't mean appreciated by the populace. So more, but what does that mean?
I would agree with that as well. Also in terms of the expectations as to what we might want to write about, might not be what we want to write about.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't seen the movie American Fiction, but I can imagine that it is like the industry kind of hoping and expecting and wanting a story. And then we're telling a different story that doesn't align necessarily with what the industry would like. And this happens in music, this happens in literature as well. So it's like the importance of like telling multiple stories that don't necessarily fit into the bracket of the most saleable thing. But we do it anyway, we continue.
Exactly. And this is also part of the reason why we as a group that are running BlackLit Durham are starting the planning towards creating the Canadian Black Literary Festival, because what we want to be able to do is to bring all of those different Black writers from the different genres and find new ways to amplify those voices. Because if we're able to put those voices in a whole bunch of different places, then it becomes harder to justify not being fully supportive of the publication of books. And the other piece of it too, around the expansion, and I liked the more but that you said to it, is that there aren't any Black publishers at the big publishing houses. There was one at Dundurn. Gloria and I are both benefiting from that.
Yes.
Right? Because Gloria's book has come out, my book is coming out next month, and our books were acquired by this gentleman. He's not at Dundurn anymore. And so who is going to be the person on the other side of the contract who's going to be helping to bring more of those voices in, and not just into the small indie publishing houses, but into the major labels, right? Who's bringing, we can get onto, Dundurn or Arsenal Pulp or, but who's bringing us into the really, really big publishing houses, the ones that have the big budgets to push your book across the country. And until we get past the maybe dozen or so people who've been able to do that, and we're able to build on some of the successes of some of the other folks like Chimi Undi, who just won the Governor General's Award,
Yep.
who came out of the spoken word community, out of Winnipeg, and she's been killing it. So we need to have more people like that who are able to take that up to the next level. And then the more we do that, the fewer excuses there get to be. And we just keep pushing and we keep pushing until the whole false facade falls down.
I think also, to add a further point, it's one of the reasons I appear on stages the way I do. I don't get dressed much. I like showing up in tracksuits and do-rags with a singular gold chain on and rapping as I come in the door for a reason. I really don't play into the thing that Canada does with respectability politics and the storytelling that happens here for two reasons. The first is because it makes it very, very difficult for anybody with a story outside, or anybody with an ability to tell stories outside of a certain level of articulation. I'm really grateful for the way I was raised, in that my dad taught me to speak well, grammatically correct, X, Y, and Z, but I'm a Scarborough man. I was born and raised on the east side. I moved to Rexdale. My parents wanted me to go to Richview. I was like, nah, I'm staying at Scarlet Heights. It's Like where the block is, I am. Like I was born and raised on the block, and I will not be moved from that. Like as much as my family did advance and my family did gain socioeconomic status, I was born in the hood, and if I'm fortunate, I will die working in the hood. I go back to the hood every week to teach. It's who I am at my core, and those stories need to be able to be told. Brother is an excellent example. If you've read the novel Brother, that is a hood story.
Yes.
It is a hood story told in a beautiful way. And the beauty of those stories and being able to tell them in any fashion necessary is that they are also valid Black stories, and Canada loves to have the urban element bleached, right? They'll give you like, yes, have that story in the hood, but make sure that the character isn't a gangbanger, that the character doesn't carry any guns, that the character can articulate themselves perfectly and totally fine. And I benefit from that, but there's mans on my block who don't. I think of some of my homies who would have been fantastic writers, but never thought it was a possibility for them because they didn't articulate themselves like me, who would have told great stories. And some are dead now. And so I think about where I come from, and I think it's necessary as we continue to expand and deepen our roots here that we also expand our broadening understandings and move outside of the respectability politics that have been forced upon us by this place. So yeah.
Beautiful. All right. We got time for one more if anybody has one. All right.
You have a question?
Yeah, please, by all means, jump on that mic. Steal it from Judith.
This is just kind of a lighthearted one to end the night on, but is there anything that you're looking forward to in this new year or like this winter break that you're just like excited for or feel passionate or gratitude for?
Cool. Scribe?
I'm going to Aruba on Monday, and I'm really excited to do that. It's going to hurt my pockets, but I need the sun. And then next year, fingers crossed, we'll be dropping at a minimum 4 projects. I have a trilogy of EPs for the hip-hop duo I'm a part of, SOAP. We have 3 EPs coming out next year, God willing. And then I have a solo project coming out. I'll call it a rap album because I'm rapping mostly. And hopefully, if the government permits, also a collection of poetry. Yeah.
Beautiful.
That's a lot.
They've been done for so long. I've been making them for like 3 years.
Okay, I feel okay now.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about my next project, which is also poetry. It is, I've recorded the first piece with a jazz saxophonist. His name is Dr. Michael Arthurs. And unfortunately, he passed away a couple of years ago. We were going to do the quartet of poems, but I will complete them in a different way. And I'm very excited about going on a retreat, a writing retreat, for the first time to Barbados. I'm so excited. It's like promoting a book is huge. I had no idea. I feel like I want to give a course for people to understand what the first year is like post publication, because it was a bit of a shock. It was a bit of a shock, and I think I really need to accept that each book that I produce will be given a year to flourish. Just give it a year. Just give it a year. Yep. But understand that it's going to be challenging. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. And I'll kick in with just 3 things. First thing is that my book, as I mentioned, is coming out. Alphabet Soup, a memoir and letters, is coming out from Dundurn. It drops on January the 28th, which is also my 50th birthday. So it's going to be a celebratory event. The second thing that's happening next year is the continuation and the moving into the 4th season of BlackLit Durham. And, when we did the first event as a, in June of 2022 as a promotion event for AfriCANthology. And when the show was done and people were walking out, and by the 4th or 5th person who told me, it's so great that we can do this here. We should do more of this in Durham instead of having to go all the way downtown in order to hear great work by other Black artists. And I'm like, damn it, I'm gonna have to start a show, So that's what's happened, and it's taken on this beautiful life, and that leads to the third thing, is that we're hoping that all of you will become invested in and help us to promote, which is the creation of the Canadian Black Literary Festival. and to have that happen in Emancipation Month, because I have a dream. It was all a dream, in fact, right? That Black people would be able to do Black people things twice a year and have a barbecue month in which to do some of that. So we have to make Emancipation Month a thing and spread out the stuff that's been happening in Black History Month, because I'm tired for running around in the snow. Give me a barbecue or 6 to attend so we can talk about Black culture and do all of that as well.
And be warm.
And be warm. We don't have to go to Aruba to do Black people things. We don't got to go to Barbados to do Black people things. We can go to Center Island and do Black people things. So that's it. Folks, thank you so much. Thank you for staying until the end. We have had an amazing opportunity to talk both with Gloria and with Josh about all of these wonderful things. Please give them another round of applause.
Thank you so much, Artistic Director, for inviting us. So appreciated.
No problem.
And for everybody.
No
who showed up.
problem. I also want to thank, of course, our team who are running things for the St. Francis Center. Big up to all the folks inside the center who are doing tech, who are on the concessions. Want a big up also to our Black business people who come here. We provide them with that space because we don't only want to amplify Black people from a creative perspective, but we also want to advance them from an economic perspective. So we bring in the folks, so if you can please give a big round of applause to our Black vendors, Patty Gal, Tea's Creations, and Baker's Lab. Also our friends from Blue Heron for selling Gloria's books, which is always a great benefit. And not least of all, of course, the other members of the team that helped to put on this show. Without them, people like Judith, people like Gary who are doing the audio visual, people like our friends here from the Ajax Public Library who are some of our core sponsors, and we are so grateful to you for what you folks do for us. Everybody who helps to make this thing happen. And most of all y'all, please keep coming, bring more people. If you come in from Etobicoke, bring more people with you too. I know this, and let's continue to build this. So thank you very much on behalf of all of us who organize. Have yourselves a wonderful night, and we will see you back here in Black History Month.